How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today. As promised last week, and we will continuously do this as the season prolongs. As we know, the offensive line was a struggle last season for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're making a series of reviewing the offensive line in terms of Pro Football Focus grades and how they performed from week to week basis. Now, last week, we saw the offensive line. There was some struggles, but then there was also some success. Most recently, though, in week 4, as the Kansas City Chiefs took down the Baltimore Ravens by the score of 37-20. You can't do that without a good offensive line. Patrick Mahomes, man, he had a good offensive line overall that game. And here are going to be the reviews of them and their breakdown. Now, as we know, we're only going to be starting and talking about the starting offensive linemen, meaning the 5 guys, not the guys who come in as replacements. But we can talk about some of how the replacements did perform. I think that's an area that needs to also, be brought up, especially with how certain players are playing. But without further ado, here we go. Here are the Kansas City Chiefs week 4, week 4 starting offensive lineman grades. Let's start with rookie Josh Simmons over at left tackle. Once again, he is slowly but surely proving and taking steps forward from what we saw him play at the collegiate level, then suffered the injury into the pro level, and he's kind of picking up right where he left off when he was healthy. He looks really, really good as a rookie, yet there are still areas for him to improve. Overall, his overall grade from week 3 was a 46.5. His overall grade in week 4, though, was flat 72. That is an improvement that I think the offensive coordinator will take, offensive line coordinator will take, head coach Andy Reid will take, and Josh Simmons will take. He played better, and I'm sure he felt he did play better. His pass blocking was a primary success for him. He had an overall 71.1. Very impressive. While it's kind of hovering around like the league average stuff, that's encouraging to see out of a rookie, especially a first rounder coming off of an injury. The word on Josh Simmons was that he was going to get taken or likely to get taken if hindsight was 2020, or since it is 2020, earlier in the draft if it wasn't for his injury. His injury made him fall to Kansas City, and he is succeeding thus far since donning the Chiefs uniform. He had a run blocking grade of a 69.4, overall 72. Good improvement from week 3 to week 4. Let's go over to Kingsley Suamataia. Also, a terrific showing for them. Another improving week for him. Last week against the Giants, he had a 44.5 overall grade. This week against the Baltimore Ravens, you got to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Giants and the Ravens are completely 2 different teams. I've talked about it before. No disrespect to Giants fans, but this is a Baltimore team that kind of makes other of their opponents kind of have to step up if they're going to beat them, such as the Chiefs did. Kingsley Suamataia is one of those examples. 44.5 from week 3, 73.3 overall week 4 grade for Suamataia. Great improvement out of the second-year player. His pass blocking grade was the highest of the offensive lines with an 88.2. Terrific. That's how you get it done. And his run blocking grade, it was strugglesome. But when you have such a good pass blocking grade, you're going to be good. His run blocking grade was a 64.9. All in all, the left side of the offensive line, that was a big struggle last season for the Chiefs. So far through the 4 weeks of the campaign, it looks to be a little bit more promising. And I think that you can tell in the way that Patrick Mahomes is launching the football a little bit more, getting more explosive plays. And I do think that it has something to do with that left side of the offensive line. Creed Humphrey kind of had a rebound week from how he performed in week 3. He had a 58.6. This week against the Ravens, he had an 83.7. He had the highest overall grade out of the starting offensive linemen, a pass blocking grade of an 83.8 and a run blocking grade of an 82.4. He is a unit, ladies and gentlemen. This guy, Creed Humphrey, when you know that you're going to feel real comfortable when you have arguably the best center of the league, in the league, performing the way that they need to perform. Creed Humphrey, a huge addition and a huge asset to protecting Patrick Mahomes. Another guy who has succeeded. If he succeeds, you can kind of tell that the other offensive linemen will succeed as well. Last week, if you think about it, the younger guys on the offensive line and Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia, they didn't play as well. Could be in part because of how Creed Humphrey was playing. But Creed Humphrey had a better week, so in due part, they also had a good week as well. Encouraging signs to see. Trey Smith, he had an overall grade in week 3 of an 82 and led the starting offensive line. This week, he had a 74.2 overall offensive line grade, which is very impressive, still very respectable. He went from first to second, and that's kind of a guy that I expect to trade off spots as the year prolongs, talking about the rankings of who's the best offensive lineman starter. And if it's going to bounce between Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, always, I think Chiefs Kingdom and the organization could feel really positive about that. He had a overall pass blocking grade of an 83.7, which was just a step below Creed Humphrey. But what he struggled in was his run blocking, which brought him down a little bit, which he earned a 67.2 overall Pro Football Focus grade. Now, overall, those 3 were playing average, 1 was playing above average, and then you have starting right tackle Jawaan Taylor. Luckily, this time around, he did not have a penalty, which is a good sign for a player who was struggling a little bit in that department, but his overall grade, I guess if you look at it, it did overall improve, but it's still a little bit below average from what the Chiefs would hope that they would have. In week 3, he had a 41.9 overall grade. This week, he had a 51.9 overall grade. So it's good to see that he's stepping up and going in the right direction rather than the opposite, which is beneficial for all of these starting offensive linemen. The pass blocking grade for Jawaan Taylor was a 46.6 and a run blocking grade of a 53.3. The lowest of the areas for all of the starting offensive linemen. He's still a player that I think the Chiefs should keep an eye on. Jalen Moore, for instance, he played in 8 total snaps, and he only had a 55.1 overall grade. His run blocking grade was a 52.8, but his pass blocking grade was a 66.5. So there are options for the Kansas City Chiefs should they want to pivot of the right tackle area. But all in all, I can't complain and can't bring down the overall grade for the Chiefs starting offensive line, just due for one player, especially since he wasn't a major factor in dropping down the success of Patrick Mahomes by any penalties. So with that, I think that it's a good overall grade to give him around a B. B in room to improve. With that, though, ladies and gentlemen, as always, be sure you follow me over on X at Dom Minchella. I post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss any coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs as we prolong into the regular season. You can also follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI, over on X, formerly Twitter. Everything gets posted there. Analysis, columns, opinions, podcasts, you name it. Kansas City Chiefs on SI is the place to get your Kansas City Chiefs news. Exclusively free, might I add. And with that, as always, remember, be kind to one another. And I will see you tomorrow.